Invisible Chains, Understanding Addiction. 2025, Artificial Intelligence, Robotic Doctors, and Flying Shoes. What not? Humanity is touching the stars, and yet, one of the most disturbing and ever growing issues all around us is addiction. What do you think addiction is? Drugs? Alcohol? Smoking? Well, addiction is far more than that. In fact, if we look close enough, almost all of us are addicted to something. Do you feel restless if you don't get your morning tea? Or slightly irritated if your usual brand of toothpaste is replaced? That's how subtle addiction can be. It sneaks into our habits, our comforts, our escapes. The truth is, addiction is not just about substances. It's about the feeling they give us. The brain doesn't crave the drug or the drink or the phone. It craves the sense of relief, the excitement, or the calm it brings. Addiction is, at its root, an attempt to escape reality, to numb something we cannot face, to fill a void we cannot name. Now, in spite of all the awareness, counseling, and punishment systems in place to prevent addiction, it continues to grow. And that by itself is enough proof that we have understood it wrong. There is something deeply flawed in the way we view and handle addiction. Let's go back to the time of the Vietnam War. During the war, many American soldiers found it extremely difficult to cope with the trauma, fear, and exhaustion of the battle. To keep them functional, the US Army began supplying them with free heroin, one of the most powerful and addictive drugs known. Soon, about 80% of American soldiers in Vietnam were using it regularly. This caused panic back home. The fear was that an entire generation of young men would return as hopeless heroin addicts, dependent for life. Because, as most of us believe, once you try a drug, you get hooked. You get that high, and when it fades, you crave it again. That's what we've been told addiction is, something that traps you chemically forever. But something surprising happened. When these soldiers returned home, 95% of them could quit heroin instantly. Cold turkey. Just like that. How was that possible? To understand that, let's look at something fascinating. Diamorphine. It's the purest form of heroin, and it is extensively used in hospitals as painkillers, especially for severe causes like cancer or when patients have fluids in their lungs. By that logic, anyone who has had a hospital stay should come out addicted. But do they? No. Most of us have had strong drugs during treatments, and yet we don't become addicts. So clearly, addiction isn't just about exposure to a substance. It's about something deeper. The environment, the state of the mind, the sense of connection, or rather, the lack of it. To explain this, scientists ran a famous experiment with rats. They placed a rat alone in a cage with 2 water bottles, one filled with plain water and the other mixed with drugs. The lonely rat always drank the drugged water and eventually overdosed. This seemed to prove that drugs cause addiction. But another scientist, Bruce Alexander, wondered, what if the problem wasn't the drug but the cage? So he created the rat park, a large bright space filled with toys, tunnels, food, and most importantly, other rats to play with. Here the rats that had once consumed the drugged water barely touched it. Even those that had been previously addicted stopped using it. The difference was connection. The lonely rats drank to escape their emptiness. The happy ones don't need to. It's the same with humans. We are social beings. We thrive on connection, love, belonging, and purpose. When these are missing, we bond with substances, drugs, screens, work, sex, gambling, or even overthinking. These become our escape routes from isolation, pain, or disconnection. Now think about how our societies treat addicts. In most parts of the world, they're treated as criminals. Even children caught using substances are marked with criminal records. They're shamed, excluded, and denied education or employment. They are alienated from the very society they need to reconnect with. How then can they ever heal? Portugal decided to find another way. They studied addiction deeply and realized something profound. When people lose meaningful connections, they bond with substances instead. Addiction isn't about moral weaknesses, it is about disconnection. So, Portugal took a radical step. They decriminalized the drug use. Instead of punishment, they focused on reconnection. The government gave small loans to recovering addicts to start businesses, paid companies to hire them, and helped them to reintegrate into the society. The result was astonishing. Addiction rates fell drastically, and very few ever relapsed. The lesson is simple yet powerful. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Now, let's bring this home. Look at the lives of the children today. Compare a 10-year-old now to when life was like when you were 10. Back then, childhood meant outdoor games, scrape knees, laughter, friendships, and endless stories. Today, a child's day is filled with school, homework, tuition, music lessons, martial arts, and dance classes. By the time they return home, they are exhausted and often greeted not by parents but by an empty house or a maid. Where is the time to bond, to laugh, to just be? When a child doesn't have enough connection, they seek it elsewhere in screens, games, social media. And slowly, some may drift into more harmful escapes. But can we really blame them? Every human needs connection. When that is denied, the brain looks for it wherever, whatever form it can find, even if it's artificial. It is said that it takes a village to raise a child. But today, we've dismantled the village. Our families are smaller, our neighborhoods are quieter, and our lives busier. We've built walls, literal and emotional. And in these walls, addiction finds space to grow. We are living in the loneliest societies mankind has ever known. We talk more through screens than in person. We chase perfection, productivity, and success, but lose touch with what makes us human: connection, empathy, presence. So let's pause for a moment and ask, are you addicted to something? Maybe it's your phone, your favorite show, or that evening drink. Maybe it's a person or a pattern of thought. Ask yourself, what are you reaching for when you feel hurt, bored, or lonely? And what does it give you? Comfort, distraction, or control? Once you find that answer, ask another question. How can I find this feeling in a healthier way? Through people, through creativity, through nature, or maybe through stillness even. Because addiction is not a sign of weakness, it's a signal for need. It's the mind's way of saying something is missing. It's not about the drug, it's about the cage. Nothing will change until we start building societies that heal rather than punish, families that talk rather than judge, schools that connect rather than pressure, and homes that feel like homes again. We need to open our eyes and stop overloading our children with expectations. We need to give them time, love, laughter, and freedom to let them have a childhood again. Addiction thrives in cages, whether made of bars, screens, or loneliness. Connection is what sets us free. So ask yourself, do you want your child to be the lonely rat drinking poisoned water just to cope? Or the happy one in the rat pack, surrounded by love, play, and purpose, who never needed the drug at all?